Welcome back, everyone, to my final recap from the St. Louis Masters. So I just finished my last game of the tournament about 45 minutes ago, and I didn't have a chance to record my round 8 recap after it finished. It was a very long game last night, so this recap will feature my final 2 games of the tournament, which were arguably some of my craziest games I've had this event. And I'm recording this on March 1st. Happy March. As of now, I've posted my first 3 recaps to YouTube, so this will probably come out maybe in a few days, 3 or 4 days. Still working on editing the other recaps. But yeah, let's hop into the game, or the games. Round 8, I was playing Attila Kuru from Turkey. I'm not sure if he's a student or... Yeah, I'm not sure his backstory. We chatted a little bit after the game, but it was mostly about the post-game analysis. So coming into this game, I did not have much time to prepare. And there's actually a bug with the tournament pairings website that it was not accessible. And I only found out the pairing about half hour before the round. So I decided that I would just play London. And I figured that maybe my opponent wouldn't have much time to prepare for me. So yeah, I play London. This is my first D4 game of the tournament from the white side. And it's probably the opening I know best, but I've been reluctant to play it throughout the tournament because I know that players could prepare against me. It's maybe my most expected opening. So after knight f6, knight f3, c5, e3, knight c6, knight bd2. This is one of the most common positions in the London. Black has a lot of playable moves here. Queen b6 is maybe the most confrontational line. C takes d4 is solid. E6, bishop g4, bishop f5. My opponent played another kind of trendy move, knight to h5, which I didn't look at before the game, but it's a line that I've prepared in the past. I've played a lot online, so I continued with my main prep, bishop to e5. This is a move I've started playing within the last couple years. I used to take on c5, which is maybe objectively the best line, but it can lead to positions where black will get the bishop pair and get some decent compensation for the sacrifice pawn, sometimes win back the pawn as well. Bishop e5 I think is a bit trickier, and there's a cool idea here, which I've played a bit online, that if black plays f6 to attack the bishop, white can play c4 and sacrifice the bishop, and it's not actually good for black to take, because after takes on d5, bishop c4, queen retreats, there's very strong tactical sequence knight g5, attacking the knight and threatening knight f7, and white is already much better here. So that's just a bit of the tricky prep. My opponent did not play f6. He played pawn to e6. So yeah, not committing the f-pawn. And here I remembered I checked this line during the World Rapid and Blitz in New York. It was maybe one of the last times I checked this line seriously. I was preparing for Grandmaster Dennis Wagner, and the line I checked was bishop to b5, and that's the move I played here. During this game, I couldn't quite remember my exact preparation. After bishop to d7, I was pretty much on my own. I had some vague memory of studying like the ventral c4. It turns out after bishop d7, there's a really cool engine line that I wish I would have remembered. I think I checked it like a year ago. But the line is bishop takes c6, which is a bit counterintuitive. Like usually you don't take on c6 unprovoked. You wait for queen b6 or a6. But the line goes bishop takes c6, bishop takes c6, and then pawn to g4. Is it pawn g4? Or is dc5? I have the engine open, and even the engine doesn't immediately find the line. Like you have to run it with a deep engine. So it is d takes c5, bishop takes c5, and then g4. And it's full initiative for white after knight f6, g5, If the knight goes back to h5 to keep the pawn defended, then white is clearly better according to Stockfish. It's plus 0.6, and there's a nice grip in the position. The knight is sidelined on h5, very often can be a tactical target. The best move for black is knight e4, and then white gets some slightly better endgame after takes and takes and takes and takes, and knight d4. Maybe it's closer to equal, but white's definitely applying pressure here with the strong minor pieces in the center. So maybe if I had more time to prepare specifically for this line, I would have remembered this or reviewed this, but yeah, I played c4 instead. So still a thematic move. This is somewhat of a Queen's Gambit London hybrid, because usually in the London you play c3, but after c4, there's a lot of pawn tension, and the game begins to heat up. So my opponent responded with cd4. I take back, and then he plays a6, so provoking me to take on c6. I take and then play pawn to c5. Because I gave black the bishop pair, I don't want to open the position further. This would be a positional mistake to isolate my d-pawn and give black a very strong control over the light square diagonal. So c5 is an attempt to close things down, make the knights a bit happier long term. My opponent replies with pawn a5, which makes sense. This is a very common prophylactic move in this structure where black prevents white from playing b4. I castle, bishop e7, rook e1, so we're both improving, completing development. I play rook c1. Maybe not a clear plan associated with this move, but I figured the rook is useful here, and if black ever plays b6, then the rook can help support c5 and maybe be on the eventual open c file. So he continues, pawn a4, trying to clamp down on the queen side, preventing knight b3. Also, if b4, there's en passant and the a file opens. So here I keep improving, play queen c2. He plays queen a5, and I play rook to e3. So yeah, last several moves have all been improving moves. And with my last couple of moves, it looks like I'm more focusing on the queen side, like maybe preparing the triple up to ensure that black can never get this b6 break in. But my last two moves, queen c2 and rook e3, were actually more kingside focused. The queen on c2 targets h7, and the rook on e3 prepares the potential rook lift over to g3 or h3. And what ended up happening in the game was a very quick kingside attack for me. My opponent played rook f to c8. And at this point, because a lot of black's pieces, all of black's major pieces are on the queen side, and a lot of my pieces have potential to attack on the king side, the position gets very, very dangerous for black, especially after my next move, pawn to g4, kicking the knight back to f6, and then knight g5. And the attack comes very quickly for white. I am threatening to take on f6 and then take on h7. And if black plays g6 to try and obstruct the diagonal, I saw a nice tactic here of simply to take on f7, a temporary knight sacrifice. But after rook f3, black is in deep, deep trouble. g5 is on tap. King g7 is still walking into a pin. So the knight is pinned, and there's no easy way for black to resolve it. If pawn g5, there's queen takes h7 with a winning position for white. So because of this, g6 doesn't work for black. And the best move for black, which my opponent played, is h6, which is scary. If I were black in this position, I would be maybe slightly terrified, because it allows bishop takes f6, and queen h7. And this is what I played in the game. But it's not so simple, because after king f8, the king is finding shelter in the center, and it's not actually clear if white can carry through with any sort of strong attack. My knight is attacked on g5. If I play queen h8, this would be a terrible blunder, because then my queen and knight are attacked. There's no tactics for white. So In this position, I play knight gf3, just retreating the knight, but trying to just ensure my things are defending d2 and d4. And before I entered this line, one of the most critical variations here is bishop takes d4. And my opponent spent a long time in this position calculating bishop takes d4. And he told me after the game he was close to playing it, and he was calculating takes and takes and takes. And it looks like black has full initiative, but he rejected this line. Why did he reject this line? He was telling me something about rook takes e6, but I don't think that makes sense in this position. Long story short, white is winning in this position because of knight takes e6. And the point is, after pawn takes knight, there's rook f3, and the king is getting mated. King e7, white is having all the fun. King d8, check. If here it's mate, and if bishop block, it's check and mate on f8. So bishop takes d4 does not work at all, but he rejected this for another reason. Was it rook takes e6 here? I think it's rook takes e6 here he didn't like, and this would force a draw. And he was actually playing for a win, so he did not want me to force perpetual. So in this position, he played king to e7, and the game keeps going. This gives me time to keep improving. I play knight f1, making sure that this knight is not overworked on f3. And my plan is to play knight g3 and knight f5, taking advantage of the pinned e-pawn. My dream is to maneuver this knight into the d6 square. But yeah, it's more of a fantasy than any sort of reality at this point. So here my opponent played rook h8. I drop back to c2, and he plays queen to c7. So black has essentially uncastled. The rook returned to the corner, the king is in the center, but the center is closed, so it's not easy for me to break through. But I continue, knight g3, wanting to have ideas of knight f5. And then he plays a very aggressive move, queen to f4, putting his queen in my crib, attacking the undefended pawn on g4. He is allowing knight f5, but it's not so effective here because after king d7, my knight and my pawn are both attacked. So I have to spend a move defending my g-pawn. I play h3, and then he plays pawn to h5. So a few moves ago, I was the one trying to attack on the king side, and now it's my opponent trying to attack on the king side. Even though it looks like I'm very stable with my knights helping defend, he is trying to open the h-file and create some weaknesses in my position. So I had a choice here. At first, it looks like knight takes h5 is attractive, but I figured that he was ready to sack the exchange after rook h5, gh5, rook h8, and yeah, I think black has pretty good compensation here. So I played a tricky move, not directly defending g4, but setting up some counter tactics. Played the move queen to d2, aligning with his queen and threatening rook takes e6. And yeah, black has to react. He cannot take on g4 because then I win the queen. So he plays king d7. And here I decided to take on h5 with a pawn, not giving black the chance to sack the exchange. And even though I'm having double pawns, I figured that the position still looks decently stable on the king side. It turns out that this was a missed opportunity. What I should have done here was take with a knight and allow the exchange sacrifice. And maybe I should have spent a bit more time to calculate this. It looks scary after rook h8, but apparently after rook d3, the engine says white is much better here. So maybe a mischance. Still, rook d3, queen f5. And my h-pawn, I guess black's not threatening to take on h3 because knight e5. Engine says rook e1 is the only move for white to keep the edge. Yeah, knight e5's coming. Okay. So mischance. I took with the pawn first, and the game continues. He plays rook a to g8, so preparing the g-pawn advance. I play king g2, trying to solidify everything on the king side, and then he plays pawn to g5. He told me after the game he was considering pawn g6, but one of the drawbacks of this move is it leaves the queen undefended, and there's some funny lines after rook takes e6, which it gets messy. There's queen takes d2, rook d6 check, king c7. I win back the queen. Maybe this is playable. Actually, it looks pretty good for black. But yeah, g5 doesn't give me the option of taking on e6. Because if I take, he just takes back, his queen's defended. So after g5, I first realized that en passant is not forced. I do not want to en passant in this position, because then he has the rooks on the half open and open files, and yeah, this would be very scary. So I decided to play rook to d1 with the idea that what did I want to do with this move? I forget why I played rook d1. I wanted to do something. I think I wanted to over-defend the pawn and maybe give the knight some flexibility. Because in this position, like if I play knight h2, then there's bishop takes d4. So I think the rook is more useful on d1, ensuring that the knight can mobilize if necessary. He continues pawn g4. We trade pawns. I play rook h1. So maybe it's a loss of tempo having moved to d1 and then to h1, but now the rook has some purpose helping on the h-file. And after takes, the pair of rooks get traded. And yeah, in this position, it was a bit tricky for me to evaluate. It's two knights versus two bishops. My king side does look a little bit vulnerable, but at the same time, my knights do a good job of defending. And going forward from here, I wanted to shift the focus to the queen side. I played the move pawn to b5, kind of wishing that en passant was forced. And then if he takes, then rook takes b3, and there's some pressure on the queen side. Maybe not so much pressure, but maybe some eventual ideas of pushing the a-pawn. But after b4, he played a very strong move, which admittedly I maybe overlooked how strong this is. Bishop to b5, just ensuring that I can never get this b5 break. Another plan that I had was queen e2 and b5 to trap the bishop. But after bishop b5, the bishop stands very well on this diagonal, and it's very hard to remove. And he's just blockading my queenside pawns. So here I ended up being in a pretty passive position. I played rook e1. He plays queen g4. And I should note that I was getting low on time, much lower on time than my opponent. I had about 15 minutes. He had over 30 minutes. And that definitely played a role coming up. After rook h1, queen e4, both my knights are pinned, and black is applying a lot of pressure in this position. I think one of his ideas is bishop to d3, to then maybe threaten to take on d4. So I played rook e1, kind of just playing for a draw, hoping that he would go back and we could repeat. But he was clearly playing for a win. He played queen f5, and I played rook to e3. The reason why I don't go back to h1 in this position is he is ready to go into d3, and then the bishop can weasel its way into the e4 square. So rook e3 is a prophylactic move, preventing bishop d3. He played queen g4. I played queen d1, being a bit passive, but also maybe having ideas of eventually knight e5. Like if he plays rook h8, he can say, oh no, my queen, and white would be winning here. So yeah, queen d1 was basically a prophylactic move preventing rook h8. He played king c8, so ensuring knight e5 does not come with check. I play rook e1, being kind of sad and passive, and now he plays rook h8. And now there's some concerns about queen h3. And yeah, I was a bit scared here. So I played rook h1. He takes, I take. And white is actually losing a pawn here, which I did not realize when I played rook h1. But black could just take the pawn on d4, taking advantage of the fact the knight's pinned, and if I take back, then queen takes f3. Now, he didn't go for this line because I have king g1, and surprisingly, it's not easy to find a move for black in this position. I'm covering a lot of key squares, and I'm threatening to play queen h8 and then weasel my queen into his territory and then maybe escape with perpetual check. So he didn't want to go into this position where it would simplify and maybe be easier for me to play in time pressure. And instead of bishop takes d4, he played bishop to h4, not winning a pawn, but still keeping pressure. After I play king g2, he takes my knight and then plays queen e4. And yeah, it's an incredibly passive and uncomfortable position for me. I'm pinned down. d4 is a constant target. I played king f2 to unpin my knight, and then he plays a3, which makes a lot of sense positionally to clamp down on my pawn on a2, and he wants to eventually play bishop c4 and win the pawn and have a passed a pawn. But at this point, I have some counterplay. Because my knight is unpinned, I play knight e5, and yeah, I'm below 5 minutes here. He is doing much better on time. And he was still playing pretty quickly. He played pawn f6 after less than a minute of thinking. And I'm not sure if when he played f6, if he overlooked my next move. But I have a lot of tricky potential here with my knight. And I hop in to f7 with the outpost on d6. I had mentioned this earlier of my middle game plan of getting my knight to d6. And finally, the fantasy is becoming a reality. And knight g6 is threatening a triple fork of his king, queen, and bishop. And it's not easy to escape the fork because he can only move one piece at a time. And there's only one logical check in this position, queen f5, what he played. But after king g1, he has no more checks and knight d6 is coming. And I'm guaranteed to fork either the king and queen, king and bishop, or bishop and queen. So I was feeling like I'm fighting back, but he found a way to keep some pressure. He plays king d7, and after knight d6, he plays queen to d3, and the resulting endgame becomes very, very tricky and concrete. We enter relatively forcing line. I trade on d3, takes, and then I take on b7. And now it's a question, can black win my a pawn and then promote his pawn, or do I have enough counterplay with my connected pawns on the queen side? And when we went into this line, I was calculating if bishop c4, I was going to bring my knight back to d6, and if he takes on a2, I have knight b5, and he's just not in time to actually save the a pawn. And if he plays king c6, then I can actually be winning here with knight takes c4, takes c4, king f2. My king is inside the box, so I'm catching the passed pawn. And yeah, black is going to lose the king pawn ending. So let's go back to what happened in the game. We got to this position, and yeah, I was calculating bishop c4 and bishop b1. Both are pretty similar lines, after which I play knight d6. But he played a move that I did not fully calculate before entering this position. It was pawn to e5. And he is delaying attacking my a pawn and trying to give me some concerns about another passed pawn being created in the center. So I continued by centralizing my knight. I could maybe throw in takes, and then knight d6, but I figured that knight d6 is a better use of my time. I'm not too scared of him taking. There's king f2, and yeah, I'll stop the double d pawns. So after knight d6, he plays king to c6. I take, he takes, and then in this position, I saw kind of a cool resource, knight to f7, with the idea that knight e5 is pretty much guaranteed, and I'll be able to take the pawn with check. If he plays this, then white's winning because I'm going to take and then stop his pawn and queen one of my pawns. So I thought I was being very clever here when I played knight f7. It turns out this is a losing move, and he played the beginning of the winning continuation, bishop to b1. I take on e5. He plays king b5. I play knight f3. And at this point, I thought I'm holding on for a draw, and we both missed the winning line. Now, what he played in the game was king takes b4, and this is throwing away the winning position. For anyone that wants to maybe try and calculate the win, feel free to pause the video, but it's a pretty tricky endgame calculation. The only winning move is bishop takes a2. And what we both saw was knight d4, and it looks like I'm going to have enough counterplay. If king takes b4, I push, and it looks like my c-pawn is going to be in time to queen. But the problem is black has king a4 here. And after c6, the bishop has enough time to control the c8 square. It looks like it's blocked by the pawn. Also, I'm controlling f5, but the bishop can zigzag. Bishop c4, c7, bishop a6. And this is a winning position for black. Yeah, if I play b5, then the bishop's just going to stop my pawns, and the knight is not good at stopping a flank pawn. If knight c2, then a2, and eventually what will happen is my knight gets trapped in the corner, and my counterplay is just too slow. Actually, by one tempo, black is queening with check. So there's another line that's maybe a bit tricky here. After bishop takes a2, knight d4, king takes b4 maybe looks like the more logical option, but after c6, bishop c4, I would have the resource knight to c2 check. And this is why it was important to play king a4 and not king b4, because now the king has to escape the check, and after c7, forcing bishop a6, white is just in time for a draw in this position. Kind of like an endgame study. Black is up a piece, but white has just enough counterplay. d4, g5, d3, king f2, and if d2, very important to queen, deflect the bishop away from e2, and then king e2 with a draw. So yeah, apologies if some of these lines are very engine-like, but I think it's instructive, goes to show how complicated endgames can be. And it's one of the ironic things about chess. Sometimes when there's much fewer pieces on the board, you assume that the position simplifies, but sometimes endgames are the most complex areas of chess to fully understand and grasp. And a lot of the lines are based on long calculations. So let me show what happened in the game. After knight f3, he took on b4, taking the wrong pawn, and this gave me the chance to push. And after king to c5, I push again. He has to cover the promotion square, and then I get my king in. I do want to note that if he were to play bishop f5 here, then I can play knight d4, let's say bishop c8, and then knight c2. And I think that's why he started with king c5. And what ended up happening was eventually he gets rid of my c-pawn, and I win his a-pawn, and then I'm actually up a pawn. So he offered me a draw around this point, but I thought maybe there's some small chance to win, but in reality, there was not much chance to win this position. His king got very active, and even though I have two outside passed pawns, he has enough play with his d-pawn, his active king, his bishop, and yeah, I can't really make progress here. I tried knight f3, put my knight on e5, and then, yeah, eventually he plays d3. I take, he wins my knight, and yeah, my passers are not enough. And the game eventually ended. I dropped my pawn in this position. I should have played a7, but it's still a draw after bishop f3. And then if g4, then king f4. If king d6, then actually bishop b7 is important, and then the king's going to win the pawn. So yeah, it was a long, crazy game. The game lasted about 4 hours. I think I was fortunate to come away with a draw, given my position in kind of the early endgame. Yeah, I honestly did not think I was going to survive this, given my time situation, given my position situation. But it was nice result to hold on. And yeah, this game put me at 3 out of 8 going into the final round. I'm realizing this is going to be a kind of a long recap video, but I do hope people are enjoying the analysis, hopefully learning a thing or two from my games. And my final game finished, what, now about an hour and a half ago? And I was playing International Master Oleksii Bilych from Ukraine. Let's start from the beginning. This is probably my craziest opening of the tournament. And just to give some context, this is of the 9th and final round. There is a money prize for under 2,400. I think there's maybe 2 or 3 prizes. I forget if it's $1,000 or $1,500. But I saw, according to the standings, that if I want to have a chance for a money prize, I probably need to win this game with the black pieces against a higher rated player. So I decided to play a super, super risky opening, super aggressive opening. And not the Stafford Gambit. Stafford Gambit would be a little bit too reckless, but it's a crazy gambit within the Sicilian. So after e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, d4, takes. I played a move which I almost never play. Like this tournament, I've played Taimanov and Accelerated Dragon, but I went for knight f6, and after knight c3, I played d6, the start of the Classical Sicilian. And one of the reasons why I went for this is I checked my opponent's previous tournament games, also his Lichess and Chess.com accounts, and I saw he plays a lot of mainline theory. The main line by far is bishop g5, which he's had several games in the past. And there's a very, very tricky kind of sideline aggressive gambit here that I played once before in tournament play several years ago as Abu Dhabi, I think 2022. And I figured that he would not be familiar with the game I played in Abu Dhabi. So I decided to repeat the opening that I played in that game. And the main move here is e6, but I went for bishop to d7. And the point, at least with this move, is to develop the queenside and exert some early queenside pressure. So after queen d2, main line, I play rook to c8. He castles queenside. I take on d4. He takes on d4. And I play queen a5. So I'm neglecting development of my kingside, but I'm attacking the bishop from a distance, and I already have the half-open c-file. And in this position, I found one previous tournament game, he played bishop e3, which is not the best move. After bishop e3, black can play a6 first and then get kind of a healthy dragon setup. But I also found a few online games where he's played f4, which is a main line, and this move allows me to play a very aggressive gambit. Rook takes c3, sacrificing the exchange, but damaging white's queenside. And one of the main points is if queen takes c3, this is already better for black. After the queen trade, knight takes e4, it's a kind of big fork, and black is doing quite well. So he has to take with the pawn. One funny tidbit, actually, with my my preparation, I saw he encountered this line once before in a chess.com blitz game a few years ago, and he actually lost this position within the next like 2 or 3 moves. And in that blitz game, he did not take the rook. He took the knight on f6, and this allows rook c7. he took on g7, and then it's black to move and win. And if you want to maybe try and find the tactic, feel free to pause the video. But in his chess.com blitz game, his opponent played one more move, and then he resigned. The move is pawn e5, which is an elegant tactic, obstructing the relationship between the queen and bishop and just winning a bishop next turn. And there's no good way for white to save material. So yeah, unfortunately, he did not go into that in the game. He played the best move, bc5. And the whole point of this line is to get in the move pawn e5. And this puts white in kind of a big decision point, what to do with the queen attacked. If he takes on e5, I can take back. My d-file is okay, even though it looks scary. The knight defends the bishop. And this would be very, very risky for white with bishop a3 coming next move. So f takes e5 is not the most common move here. Before the game, I was preparing for a bunch of different queen moves. There's queen c4, queen d3, and queen b4, kind of the main considerations for white. My game in Abu Dhabi featured queen d3, after which black is doing quite well after knight g4, threatening the triple fork. And there's already full compensation here for black. After queen c4, which he didn't play, there's a very fun move, pawn d5. And it's very easy for white to be losing very quickly. There's some pretty nasty engine lines that can emerge after pawn takes pawn, bishop a3, king b1, and then knight e4 with forks all around. And yeah, this is already completely winning for black. So he played the best move. After e5, he played queen to b4. He took about a 7-minute think. And this is the main line. I was still prepared. Queen takes b4, pawn takes b4, and knight takes e4. So I'm down the exchange, but I win a key center pawn, attacking his bishop. And in this position, he took another very, very long think. And I'll admit, one of my biggest mistakes in this game actually came before the game, because I prepared very deeply this variation, but the only move I prepared for in this position was bishop h4, which is by far the most common. It's logical, preventing knight f2, but he didn't play that move. He found an interesting alternative in the position, bishop c4. Now, I'll go ahead and say that bishop h4 is the only move for white to keep the advantage, according to Stockfish. But I was prepared much deeper in this position, just to show maybe a small sample of my preparation. There's g5 for black, attacking the bishop. And then after pawn takes g5, I was going to play bishop e7. If bishop d3, then I'm going to win 2 pawns on the queen side. If bishop c4, then b5, bishop b3, h6. And white's still under pressure. And yeah, my prep went a bit deeper here, but I think what he did in the game was maybe a good practical decision to play a move that I wasn't prepared for, and the position still got very tricky. So instead of bishop h4, he played bishop to c4, which allows the fork. And in this position, I was a little bit confused why he's allowing the fork, and I thought that, okay, I'm going to play knight f2, I'll win back the exchange, and the endgame should be fine. But I think I made some false assumptions here, and I did not consider my other options in the position. What I should have done was not gone for the material. I should have played h6, kick the bishop back, and then g5 is very strong. And I'm still down the exchange after takes, let's say bishop e1, but black is doing very well here. The knight is arguably stronger than either of white's rooks, and I have a very healthy pawn island controlling center and space, and engine slightly favors black in this position. But in the game, I assumed that, okay, if he doesn't play bishop h4, he allows knight f2, I should just snag the material. So I played knight f2, which is still playable, but then the position gets very, very tricky. He takes on e5. I take the rook on h1. I want to take the more passive rook. If I take the more active rook, then after rook takes d1, the rook is well placed on the half-open d file. There's actually a problem with this line. If I take back on e5, there's bishop b5. And white's completely winning because takes and then checkmate. So usually in such cases where you're forking the rooks, you want to take the more passive rook. I take on h1, and then he does not take my knight back. This would allow me to take back and be up a healthy pawn. He takes on d6. And now the position gets really weird because white is threatening what is nearly forced mate with rook e1. If I play knight f2, rook e1, bishop e6, bishop e5 is checkmate. It's a crisscross, very sad applesauce for me. Bishop d7 is not legal. My bishop's pinned. So my knight can't actually save itself in this position. Rook e1 is a massive threat. I played pawn to f6, attacking the bishop and ensuring my king has a d8 square. He plays bishop e3, which is a nice retreating move, even though he's obstructing the e-file. He's controlling f2, so my knight is completely stuck in the corner, and he's attacking a7, which is undefended. And here I took a very, very long think. And the move I wanted to play here initially was bishop to c6. And I spent a long time calculating these variations. The point is I'm attacking the pawn on g2, also freeing the d7 square for my king to blockade his pawn. But I calculated a very deep line that I couldn't quite figure out. And the reason why I didn't go for this is because pawn b5, attacking my bishop, bishop takes g2, and then there's pawn d7, king d8, bishop takes a7, and okay, white's on the verge of just winning with bishop e6 and queening, but black has a resource, bishop a3 check, and if king d2, I take the pawn, so king b1, and then I was calculating both king e7 and king c7, and I came to the conclusion that I think both moves are losing for black. If I play king c7, there's b6. I have to go back. Now there's not bishop b6, but there's bishop b8. And the bishop's coming to c7. The pawn's going to promote. I'm going to be losing the exchange. And then the other line I looked at, king e7, I saw rook g1. And then I don't have time to win the pawn. My bishop's attacked. If takes, it's equal material, but my knight's still stuck in the corner, and it's going to be trapped after rook g1. And if I move my bishop, then rook takes g7, and I thought this whole line is just losing for black, even though it seems very close to working out. So that's pretty much the reason why I did not play bishop c6, but instead I played a different candidate move in the position, pawn to b5, attacking his bishop and trying to make it so his bishop has to choose which diagonal to stay on. He can move this way or this way. He played bishop to b3, and then I still wanted to play bishop c6, but then there's bishop c5, and black is defending the pawn. My knight is still kind of stuck in the corner. So I went for bishop g4, trying to get some initiative, attack his rook, and also, again, freeing the d7 square for the king. He plays rook d4, attacking my bishop. I play h5, and I thought the position is tremendously complicated still. My knight is still alive in the corner, but it's kind of a hostage situation. I still can't come back, and I have to focus on dealing with his very strong passed d-pawn. And after h5, he has a move, and he starts generating a lot of scary play on the queen side with pawn a4. And yeah, his queenside majority is ready to assert its dominance. And I tried to keep things under control. I played pawn a6. But then he played another very strong move, pawn c4, and white is guaranteeing breakthrough on the queen side to create some additional passed pawn or maybe passed pawns. And I was feeling pretty uncomfortable at this point. I did not want to take his pawn because then he takes back, and yeah, the position seemed too difficult to deal with. So in this position, I played a move which I thought was useful in the moment, but I made a pretty bad oversight. I played bishop e6, pinning his pawn to his bishop. And when I played this, I was calculating some interesting lines, like if he plays rook e4 to pin my bishop to the king, I have king d7. If he sacks, it looks scary, but I think black has everything under control, like takes with check, I take and then I should have enough resources to stop his pawns. Another line I looked at was takes and then c5, but again, I should be okay. I'm ready to sack my bishop for the d-pawn. What I had missed when I played bishop e6 is he can take on b5, and I wanted to take on b3. I was calculating takes on a6, king d7, but he has an intermezzo pawn d7, and now I'm blockading on d8. It's a dark square, which his bishop can eventually exploit, and in this position, there would be rook d3, not only attacking my bishop, but more strongly threatening bishop b6. And this is just completely losing for black. And when he took on b5, I realized my doom. It's pretty beautiful play for white. I do have to give my opponent kudos for the double piece sacrifice. I did not take his bishop. I played king d7, trying to stop the d-pawn. But then white just has too many passed pawns after takes and takes d7, bishop d6, and then takes. My knight is still stuck, and yeah, the game ended after a few more moves. Rook d8, a7. The finish was nice for him. I played g5, and then he sacrifices his rook with rook takes d6. Perhaps a fitting finish, given that I had sacked my rook earlier. He returns the gift, but yeah, with a lot of venom. Bishop b6 hits my rook. If I take, he promotes. And if I block his a-pawn, he promotes this pawn. And yeah, the position is completely losing for black. So I never actually lost my knight, but the knights lived a pretty sad life in this game. And it was kind of a sad finish to the tournament. With this loss, I do not win any money. But to be honest, I'm not too upset about this game. I think there's a lot of lessons to learn, not just from this game, but from all my games. And I hope I was able to share at least a few lessons with you, the audience. So if you watched this recap until the end, thank you so much for watching. My final score this tournament was 3 out of 9, which was maybe an expected score. I played higher rated competition every game. I think my rating remains around the same. I really don't care that much about rating. It's more about learning. And I think I learned a lot from this tournament. I think this tournament forced me to go outside my comfort zone, explore a lot of deeper opening lines that I have not seriously explored in the past. And I look forward to returning to regular streaming content, Title Tuesdays and 3-0 Thursdays, and the speedrun content. Thank you everyone again for the positive messages in the YouTube comments. Let me know if there's other types of content you want to see coming up. I'm not sure when my next over-the-board classical event will be. I am planning to play the American Cup Blitz tournament tomorrow, so that's going to be a strong field, probably a very similar field to this tournament. And stay tuned. I'll see you guys soon.